Welcome to the What's Good Dough podcast and get ready to level up. But before we continue with the show, I want to introduce you to my two show sponsors, Uni Pizza Ovens and Cordo Olive Oil. Let's start with Uni. They are the #1 pizza oven company in the world with the best community there is. Because of their ovens, I have made some of the most amazing pizzas. From round pies to squares, I'm able to get to temperatures of up to 900 degrees, allowing me to cook the pizzas of my dreams. If you're looking to grow your pizza business, buying an Uni makes sense. My past guest Ryan of Sanctuary Pizza has a mobile catering company powered by Uni. These powerful ovens are efficient, lightweight, and can be used almost anywhere. Whether you take pizza seriously like me or want to run a pizza operation like Ryan, Uni is the choice for you. Use the link in the show notes and join the Uni community. My second show sponsor is Cordo Olive Oil. At first, I didn't believe that olive oil mattered. It wasn't until I got educated and learned about the difference between commodity oil and Cordo's fresh squeezed olive oil that I ditched the supermarket stuff. Today, I only use Cordo olive oil when it comes to making my dough and even doing a post-bake drizzle. I have even made some amazing pesto with it. Oh my goodness. Cordo's high quality olive oil does really elevate anything it touches. My buddy Chris, who runs a slice of New Jersey, just switched over to Cordo. Not only is he getting quality, but he ended up saving money by switching over too. If you're still unsure of the difference, pizza operators can sign up for a free olive oil tasting. Use the link in the show notes to learn more. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my show sponsors and supporting this show.
It's easy to do anything for 30 days, but those people who you see who have a good business, very rarely will you see that they've done it over a short period of time.
That was Bruce of Smart Pizza Marketing, and it's your boy, iDrift, and you're listening to the What's Good Dough podcast. Whether it's pizza, business, or life, my guest and I are always talking about ways we can level up. Bruce is an OG in the pizza game. He started his pizza career very early on at a very established pizzeria in Boston. He then worked at different pizzerias and eventually worked his way up to a managing partner, where he basically ran his own store. In this episode, we share not only his lessons in pizza business, but also his transition from pizza maker to pizza marketer. And he's going to give you all of the tips and strategies that you need to learn to level up your marketing. For your convenience, there is an auto-generated transcript on my website, whatsgooddough.com/Bruce. It'll be linked in the show notes for your convenience. This is an amazing episode, so sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. And remember to always ask, what's good, dough? What's up, everybody? I have an amazing guest today. I'm excited to share this person's story and share some of the lessons that they've accumulated throughout their time in pizza with you all. I got Bruce Irving with me today. Welcome to the show, man.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here with you on this fine morning.
Oh yeah, it's a fine morning and the listeners are dying to know. There is one way I like to start the show. They're dying to know from you, what's good, dough?
Well, it's a sunny July day. I'm alive, I'm healthy, my family's healthy, so that's what's good, dough.
Let me ask you, because that's have you heard that before? Do people talk like that in the East Coast? Like, what's good, though?
I don't know if I've heard that specific phrase, but they do ask. Like, we have our own vernacular that we use here on the East Coast. It's a little bit more. We're a little bit more hyper, intense, vulgar than you guys are on the West Coast there.
Well, thank you for keeping it clean. You're welcome to cuss here if you want. Whereabouts in the East Coast are you?
I'm in Boston.
In Boston.
Not in the city itself. I live about 15 minutes north of Boston. It's called North Shore of Massachusetts. It's with no traffic, I can probably get to the city in about 25 minutes. Okay.
And how did you get into pizza?
I started making pizza. My friend worked at this place called Pizzeria Regina when he was 2 years older than me. I was 14, he was 16. He got his first job. I used to just kind of go in there and hang out with him when he worked. And then as soon as I became 15 or 16, I believe I was old enough to start working. I became a cashier there, and I didn't really like that so much. So I wanted to start making pizza. And that was my first job in pizza. Pizzeria Regina, which is a real well-known pizzeria here in the Massachusetts area. And I loved it. I wasn't good at school. I couldn't focus. It wasn't interesting to me. So I knew that wasn't my path. And I knew I needed to kind of figure something out of what I was going to do with my life. And I just liked pizza. And I worked at Pizzeria Regina for a little while. And then I moved to Salem, Massachusetts, which is a well-known destination for travelers outside of the Massachusetts area. Got another job at a pizzeria. Ended up working there for a long time, busted my butt working for this guy. And we ended up becoming partners in that location. We opened up a second location, and then I kind of worked there for a long time until I started doing this podcast. So I've been in pizza my whole life.
Wow.
Not my whole life, but my whole working career.
Wow. That's impressive. You've really stuck with it. Let me ask you about
Regina's. I was good at it. Yeah, I liked it. I was good at it, and it just was enjoyable to me.
That's good. And you knew what you liked and knew what you didn't like, and you stuck with it. Were you at the original Regina's?
No, I was in the one there. So Regina's, I actually had the I don't know what his title is from Pizzeria Regina's on the podcast a few years back. And the original one is in the North End. And then what happened was this was probably in the 90s, early 2000s, before the internet was really a thing. They started to expand. They wanted to become a franchise. And what they did was, their model was they would go to food courts and they would open up pizzerias in a lot of different food courts. And that was great at the time because those malls were real busy. The internet wasn't a thing. Amazon wasn't a thing. People would go to malls and they would just jam out. So I worked at one of the ones that was in one of the food courts. I would go to like the one in Faneuil Hall and the one in the North End to help out when needed. But the one that was closest to where I lived was in a mall. So that's kind of where I worked. And then what happened was the internet happened, and all of those places that they had as their busiest locations, because all of the people were going to them, started to die out, and they got in real big trouble financially because of all those mall contracts that they had. And the rent was really high and people just weren't going to the malls like they used to. So they transitioned into more of have you heard of Polcari's?
Mm-mm. What's that?
So Polcari's is kind of like their restaurant version of Pizzeria Regina. So they have a few of those around now. But yeah, I started kind of in a mall food court, which is funny to say.
Wow. Well, mall food court, whether it's, at least you're serving pizza and working with something that you loved.
Yeah. I mean, you had to go train at the original location. So I worked there. It was in train there and learn how to make pizza and learn how they did pizza. But in all of their locations, they did the pizza the same way. They had the same ovens, the same ingredients, the same dough, the same process. It just happened to be in a mall food court.
Gotcha. Regina's is one of the busiest pizzerias that I've ever been to. It was crazy when I went.
Yeah.
And like everyone has to go there. I feel like it's just like a piece of Boston history. It's
kind of like when you think of Boston and people come to me and they're like, "Hey, Bruce, I'm coming to Boston. Where should I go for pizza?" Mm-hmm. In my opinion, the best pizza in Boston isn't necessarily in the city of Boston. Boston's a real small city. It's not a big city like New York where the Manhattan's huge. Boston itself is really small. It's a small city. All of the best pizzerias are on the outskirts: Medford, Somerville, Cambridge. And then even a little bit outside of that, there's great pizzerias. So if you come to Boston and you don't have a car, you can find good pizza, but I don't think you're going to find the best pizza around. You may need to rent a car in order to kind of get to the outskirts to find the best pizza that's considered kind of in Boston, but not necessarily in the city.
Right.
But yeah, what are some Pizzeria Regina and Santarpio's are the two that people always mention.
Santarpio's is definitely like outside of like the main, what is it, North End, where all of the spots are?
Yeah, North End is like where the original Regina's is, and where people kind of go. It's like Mike's pastries and modern pastry, and there's on Hanover Street, there's a whole bunch of restaurants. And then Santarpio's is more in South Boston.
Gotcha. So you moved on to becoming a partner eventually at a pizzeria. How did that happen? Like, did you just work your ass off and say, "Hey, I got all of this experience under me. I bust my butt for you. Make me a partner"?
I mean, kind of. I was probably, I think I worked at Pizzeria until I was 18 or 19, moved to Salem, started working for this gentleman when I was 19. And then he kind of was my mentor when it comes to teaching me about business. He was in the same situation I was. He bought the pizzeria. He was 10 years older than me. He bought the pizzeria when he was early 20s. So he was really young when he bought his first pizzeria and he was working it. And when I started working there, I think I was like 19 or 20. He was 30. He was 10 years older than me. And I was just a young punk kid making pizza, and that's all I wanted to do. And I saw that he operated the pizzeria. He bought it at a young age. He had a wife. He had kids. He didn't go to college like me. He was very successful. He had a house. So I was like, you know what? I wonder if, I would ask him questions and just, I would go there on my days off and just hang out and ask him questions. And he would teach me the business and teach me how to run the business, not just make pizza, but run the business. And after doing that for a few years, it became, a supervisor and then an assistant manager and then the manager and then the general manager. And I got married when I was 22. So I was pretty young when I got married, and I had my first kid right after that. And I was the general manager of that store. And I'm telling you, I didn't start as a partner or buy in for a few years after I was the general manager because I needed to save money in order to be able to do that. My kids were born. I don't think my kids knew they had a dad, even though I lived in the same house with them for the first 5 years of their life. I would literally leave in the morning before they woke up. I would be out of the house by 7, 8 o'clock, and I wouldn't come home until 10, 11, sometimes 12 o'clock at night. And I did that for 5 years because I needed to save money, and I needed to just make enough money to live and also make enough money to save in order to do what I wanted to do, which was buy a house and buy a business. So I did that for a long time.
Would you say that it was worth it?
It was a different time. I don't think you have to do that now because there's much more opportunity on the internet now to figure out how to make money and learn. But back then, the internet was around, but only for like us dorks who knew what the internet was back in, the early 2000s. It wasn't like it is today where everybody has it in their pocket. Back then, that's all I knew. It was just to put in hours in work. I don't know if I would necessarily suggest somebody to do that now, because looking back, I don't want to say I wasted 5 years of my life because I have a nice house now. My kids don't remember that. They go to a good school, and I've built up my brand and business over the time because I did that. So I don't want to say it wasn't worth it, but I wouldn't suggest anybody do it now because it was a lot of work and it was very, very hard and challenging and stressful.
Sometimes I feel like I am overworking myself too today. And like, I can see it in my wife's eyes or like the way she responds. It's like, oh, you're working on Sunday and on 4th of July. Like, when the fuck are we going to hang out? And
right.
I'm thinking to myself as I'm preparing for this kid, like, what's my work-life balance going to be?
Yeah. It's a tough decision. You have to decide what you really want. I was very determined to get a house and buy a business before I was 25. And the only way I did that was by putting in the hours in the work. And I did it. And like looking back on it now, I'm kind of glad that I did do it. Would I want to do it again? Hell no. I would never want to do that again because it was a lot of work. But yeah, you have to decide what you want and then decide if what you have to do to get what you want is worth it. Is it worth it for you? Is it worth it for your family? Is it worth it for your health? Is it worth it for your long-term goals? Sometimes the answer is yes, and sometimes the answer is going to be no. A lot of people look up to successful people, and I put success in air quotes because people mostly think of success in a financial way. But some of the most financially successful people that you know or may know are not very happy in their personal lives or with family or with themselves. So yeah, they have money and they look successful, but like they may have been divorced a couple of times, or their kids may not be the best parent in the world, and they may not have any free time to go do the things that they like to do. And at this point in my life, I don't want to do anything that I can't involve my family with, or it doesn't make me happy. Like money doesn't matter as much to me today as it did when I was 20 years old and I wanted those things.
I love what you said there because I was just reading yesterday, this article about comparison and how it's the thief of all joy. I think
Yeah.
Teddy Roosevelt said that. And like when you're comparing someone and you're, like admiring what they did, you're comparing one point in their life, the fame, like you said, or like the money, and you're not really looking at the big picture, right? And it's like you don't know what that person had to do to get there. Like you had to sacrifice 5 years of family time and missing out on key moments, but you got to a certain place and you're better off for it. But you're like, it's like no one ever sees the full picture.
Especially now with things like Instagram, where everybody just puts their best moments. It's Instagram's the best of your life. No one ever puts, for the most part. I mean, you may see them once in a while. No one ever puts their failures or their down moments on Instagram. Everybody just puts their best moments. And, I've done a lot of interviews like you where you don't see the behind the scenes. So you may see somebody that has 5 locations and you have one, or you're doing a pizza pop-up and you're struggling to kind of get business or get momentum going. And you think to yourself, wow, it must be nice that person has 5 locations, but you never know what that person's going through. They may be struggling. They may not be able to pay rent on 2 of them. 2 of those places may be under when it comes to profit and loss. And one of their places is usually the busiest one that covers the rent for another one that's not as busy, and that's stressful, and they don't have employees to cover the shift. So you can't look at what other people are doing. I think you have to just set what you want out of life, use other people as inspiration, right? Not admiration. Inspiration to see what you want to do and what you don't want to do, and then decide if it's worth it for you. We're on this planet for such a short period of time. There's no time to be miserable or do something that you don't enjoy doing. The world is full of opportunity, and time goes by way too fast to waste.
Yes. We've talked about the internet so far, and you've mentioned this podcast. And I feel like it's given you the opportunity to run your own business without working at a pizzeria. Is that right?
For sure.
How did the podcast get started?
I was operating the pizzeria with my partner, and I loved podcasts. I'm not much of a reader. I'm a very slow reader. I have a hard time retaining information when I read it. So I just gravitated towards audiobooks and podcasts. And while I was working in the morning, I would just put in my headphones and I would listen to podcasts or audiobooks. And I would search out business or entrepreneurship style podcasts or audiobooks. And I would just listen because I wanted to learn. I didn't have a college education. So anything that we learned in business, we learned by doing or reading about or listening about, and then kind of implementing it from there. And I was always looking for podcasts for the pizza industry. And I was thinking to myself, wow, there's nothing really out there for the pizza industry. And not only that, but these podcast hosts get to talk to some amazing people and ask them questions. It's almost like you hire them without having to pay them money and get to ask them questions for 45 minutes or 30 minutes. And you get free reign to ask them kind of whatever you want. I'm like, wow, that's a great opportunity. I should start a podcast about pizza where I bring on people I've read in the pizza magazines and ask them, how did you get to 5 locations? Like, how do you find employees? Like, what systems do you have in place? What is your best marketing strategy that you could share? Not necessarily starting the podcast to share it with other people, but solely for me to do and run in our business. And I did the podcast for the first 2 years while running the business. So everything that I learned on the podcast, I didn't care if anybody listened. I was just having these guests on and say I have a podcast, and then I would ask them whatever questions I wanted. I had them for half hour, 45 minutes. I was just trying to learn myself how to run the business.
That's really smart. Give us the name of the podcast.
It's Smart Pizza Marketing.
And what year did you officially start that?
So I bought the domain Pizza Podcast in 2013. But I didn't do anything with it. And then I believe my first episode I recorded was in 2014, but I didn't release it till 2015. It was with Scott Anthony. Do you know who Scott Anthony is?
Yeah, he's in the East Coast, runs a few shops, right?
Yeah, I think he just has one. Punksy Pizza. He's like on the US Pizza team. He speaks at the Pizza Expo. He was my first interview. And
okay.
I remember it vividly. It was like I had a crappy microphone. It was like a very Mickey Mouse setup. It was pretty funny, but I was really nervous talking to him, and asking somebody else questions about it, but I got through it. And I think 2015 was our first episode was released.
So you recorded it in 2014.
Oh yeah, I recorded it like 6 months before that, and I just didn't put it out. I thought I was just looking at it for information, and then I'm like, all right, if I got to have other people on, I got to put it out. Even though I don't really care if anybody listens, I got to put it out so people who I asked to be on the podcast, they're gonna go search it out and make sure that there's other episodes.
Right.
But back then, podcasting was so new. It's not like today, where if I put 100 pizza operators in a room back in 2014 and said, raise your hand if you listen to podcasts or know what a podcast is, 7 people would have raised their hand.
That many, huh?
They just didn't know what it was back then. Now, if you put 100 people in there, almost everybody knows what a podcast is and has listened to one. But back then, it just wasn't in the industry. Podcasting was pretty popular, but not in the pizza restaurant industry. There wasn't a lot of them.
What I admire about you is that you were an early mover. In the grand scheme of things, you say podcasts were pretty popular. Even then, from my just digging into other podcasters who have been doing this, it was still very niche at the time. And also you had to go through a bunch of things just to get your podcast distributed to other people. Today we have all these distribution platforms. It's not the best. It's not like there's an algorithm like YouTube where it just presents it to different people. But after a couple of clicks, you're able to I can send you my podcast. But back then it wasn't like that, right?
No, I've been doing the same process since I started the podcast, but it was definitely setting up your RSS feed and submitting that to iTunes wasn't as streamlined as it is today. And podcast discovery wasn't as good as it is today. There wasn't Spotify, there wasn't Google, there wasn't the Google, what is it?
Google Podcast or something?
Yeah, Google Podcast. There wasn't that. There was only really iTunes, and then you put it on your website. That's all there really was back then for podcasting that people actually listened to. There might have been other platforms, but there wasn't the major ones like we have today that you can go just Google, search on the search bar and type in pizza and all these podcasts come up. It was a little bit more challenging.
So 2014, about 8 years doing the podcast now.
Crazy.
Holy fuck, man.
I know.
No, that's really crazy.
Sounds crazy when you say it out loud.
What kept you going?
That's a great question. I just love doing it. The first 2 years I did it, I ran the business simultaneously while doing the podcast. And it came to a point where I would implement things and then come back and talk about it on the podcast. And our listenership started to grow. And people would reach out to me, hey, we want to sponsor the show. And, okay, that's great. That's a way to make money from it. And then we would talk about things that we were doing, either with our live streams, which we did back then on Blab, and that was before Facebook Live came out. And people would ask us, they'd listen to a podcast. We talked about email marketing, or I talked about email marketing for our business. This is what we did. These are the emails that we did. This is the Facebook ads that we did. This is how we're running our Instagram. People would reach out and be like, hey, I heard your podcast. Can you do that for me? And so many, at first I was like, no, I'm not doing it for you. I don't do that. We don't do that. You can just listen. This is how you do it. Go do it. And then we got so many people that I started a company about marketing where we would do your marketing for you if you wanted us to. So I got enough people to do that. I got enough sponsorships, and I had to make a choice. It was coming to a point where running the podcast was taking up a lot of my time, and I couldn't focus on the business as much. And I had to make a decision. I've been doing the pizza business for 20 plus years at that point. Do I want to continue to do the pizza business and then not let this podcast marketing company grow to its full potential? Or do I want to kind of take a step back from the pizza business and go all in on this podcast and see if I can make the podcast and the marketing company grow to be a sustainable business on its own? And at that point in my life, I was older. I was in the business for a long time. I was, to be honest, a little burnt out of the daily grind of going in every morning and being on call all the time and not having a day off. Even on your day off, you get phone calls and you have to manage people and you have to organize things. So I said, you know what? I'm going to do it. If I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it. I took myself out of the pizza business and I went all in on the podcast and the marketing company, and I haven't looked back since.
I love that self-talk. If I'm ever going to do it, now is the time.
Yeah. My wife was really supportive because in the beginning, I took a really hit when it came to financially. I was making a lot more money in the pizza shop working the pizza business than I was at the podcast. So financially, I took a hit. It was a dramatic drop off of income, but my wife was really supportive, and she was saying the same thing. The worst case scenario, I do this podcast marketing company for a year. It doesn't work. I know how to open a pizza shop. I know how to run a pizza business. There's thousands of pizza shops in my area I can go work at and make money. Worst case scenario, I stop and I go work at a pizza shop, or I start another one on my own and kind of build it up from there. So it was like a no real lose situation. But you need support because it's not easy. And even it's like starting any business. You have a lot of self-doubt. You never know if it's going to really work or if you're doing the right thing. And you just have to have faith and be consistent over time, I guess.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Like, I have this plan to be able to quit my job in about a year or so. And I know that I can do that because I would have enough money saved up to cover at least a year of expenses. And also my wife is going to be working. So that's kind of my plan. As I mentioned to you on your podcast when I was a guest, I wasn't too happy with my job. I'm still at the same job, and you're pushing me every time I talk to you because you're telling me life is too short, man. And
I don't want to be responsible for anybody's financial distress though, but you have to be okay. Like, I would say cut back on all your expenses, like try to spend as little money as possible, live well below your means. And if you can live well below your means and you're still happy and your family's happy and they're healthy, that's all that really matters. Like, I would rather make less money. And I make by far less money on a monthly basis, like me personally, than I did when I ran the pizza shop. But my life is far better. I'm less stressed. I enjoy my work. I work all the time because I love it. Whereas when I was in the pizza shop, I would look forward to like having a day off and not having to deal with it. So I would trade happiness for money any day of the week.
100%. And I'm not like looking to get into this full time to be super rich. There's that possibility because with an internet business, you have this thing called scale.
Yeah.
Where like at a pizzeria or owning a physical business, you're limited to the number of people that can make it to your location. Whereas if you open an internet business, you can serve as many people in the world as possible who can find your brand.
Right. 100%. I agree with that 1000%. And that's kind of like what pushed me back then to go all in on this, because I saw the potential. If I worked just as hard on the podcast and the marketing company, it could be far bigger than the pizza shop or two shops that we had at the time because of that exact reasoning. Like, there's only so many people in each one of these towns that could buy your pizza. And no matter how famous you are on the internet with Instagram or TikTok, there's only so many people that are going to come into your business on a daily basis consistently. You may get people from other cities that when they're visiting your city, come stop by because they found you on Instagram or TikTok, but that's not sustainable. You gotta be part of that community in order to have a business that's profitable on a weekly and monthly basis. So I agree with you 100% on that.
All right. Well, that said, we're not going to convince everyone here to drop their pizza plans and go open up an internet business or podcast. We may, convince a couple people, but for those who are, sticking to their guns and sticking to their pizzeria, like I have you for the next, 10 to 15 minutes still. And I'm going to take you up on the free, consulting advice that you took from other people when you started your podcast. What is your best marketing advice for people today?
Do they own businesses or do they want to get into the pizza business?
Ooh, that's a good question. I would say like both. I would say what's your best beginner tip and what's your best tip for, maybe not tip, but like maybe strategy for someone who's already existing.
So it's never been easier for someone, like, let's start with someone who's not in the pizza business, but thinks they want to get into it at some point. It's never been easier in the history of pizza to dabble with a pizza business and see if you like it or not. 10 years ago, these portable ovens weren't as much of a thing as they are today. They weren't as easy to be carried around. They weren't as inexpensive as they are now. And people weren't as accepting of them being conventional pizza businesses as they are today. So if you are somebody who has a day job and wants to get into the pizza business, I would go to the internet, watch as many videos as you can on how to make pizza, buy one of these unis or goznis in your house, test out your recipe, make pizza for your friends and family, and see if you actually can make a good solid pizza, and then do some pop-ups. Go to your local breweries and see if you can get a place there on Friday or Saturday night and just make pizza, and maybe even just do it for cost. And do that for a few months, because I'll tell you what, making pizza for friends and family is not owning a pizza business. It is not the same thing. I love making pizza for my friends and family. And I love doing pizza pop-ups because they're simple, but having to worry about that solely to make money for your life is a lot more stressful and harder than it is just to do a pizza pop-up when you have a day job. So you got to make sure you actually like doing it. If you find yourself doing it for a few months and you love it and you're like, wow, this is great, I love this way more than my day job, then do it all the time and figure it out, and then save enough money. And maybe if you want to do a food trailer or a food truck, take that step. Or if you want to get into a brick and mortar, take that step. But start small and start nimbly and then move from there. That's what I would do if I was somebody who had a day job that was looking to get into the pizza business.
Now, because you have all this experience, not just in pizza business, but also marketing too, what's the marketing advice you would give to that person starting off?
I would go to TikTok and Instagram. Those are the two platforms that right now have the most exposure for free and the most people on there. And pizza is such a photogenic and video friendly food that you could grow a following on those two platforms pretty quickly. I would just make a pizza, and from one pizza, I would document the process of making it. And then I would take 10 to 15 videos / photos of that one pizza after it was done in different angles, different ways, and use that as content. And I would post a piece of content every single day to those platforms until I grew enough of an audience who knew where I was and knew who I was, where I could sell them something.
When you are posting these 10 to 15 photos, does it not get repetitive even if it's different angles?
It does, but who cares? If someone wants to unfollow me on Instagram, I don't care about follower count. I care about what my goal is with the platform. I'm not looking to have 100,000 followers on Instagram so I can say I have 100,000 followers on Instagram. I'm looking to have 2,000 followers on Instagram that are actual customers who are interested in me. And of those 2,000 people, if I post too many times and 2 people fall off, but the other 1,998 people enjoy it, then that's who my audience is. I don't really care about those other 2 people.
Got it. So are you hoping that by posting this frequently on the daily, you attract more customers potentially?
I think you need to attract attention in people's eyeballs. And by doing that, they'll be aware of you, and then you have the ability to transact. I think just like any business, when you're starting out, nobody knows who you are or what you do. And back in the day when I first started a brick and mortar, you'd have to go hang door handles, like menus on door handles, and go put them on flyers on cars and get attention that way. And it was time consuming and expensive because you'd have to print all those things out, and then you have to either do it yourself and spend hours doing it or hire somebody to go do that. And doing 2,000 door hangers takes hours, or a few $100s between paying someone to do it and printing it out. You can get in front of 2,000 people right now if you do a really good post and you use the right hashtags and you put your location on there in 10 minutes. What would you rather do? Would you rather spend 5 hours and $500 to do 2,000 door hangers with coupons, or would you rather get attention over and over and over again from people who are in your area on the internet?
Good question. And
for free.
I would hope that you choose the internet. Question for you, do door hangers still work today? Do you find...
Yeah, they work. Everything works. I think everything works. Email marketing works. Direct mail works. Door hangers work. I think everything works. It's just how it works changes. Door hangers are great, but door hangers are discounts. You're not going to be able to just go to put something on my door that says, hey, I made this pizza last night. You should check it out. No one's going to care. They're going to throw that right in the trash, and you're going to have wasted your time and money. You need to be strategic with the type of marketing that you do, whichever type of marketing you're doing. And it has to have a plan specific to that type of marketing. So my direct mail marketing strategy is going to be different than my door hanging strategy. It's going to be different than my Instagram strategy. It's just like these social media platforms, right? Like if you ask your wife or your mom or your uncle, what social media platforms they use, they're probably all going to be a little bit different. No one's going to be on all social media platforms as a consumer. They all have their specific social media platform that they prefer and they're comfortable with, and that's where their friends are, and that's kind of where they hang out. And you need to, if you use that specific platform to talk to your uncle, say he's on Facebook, you need to write that message geared toward him and not geared toward your 18-year-old niece who's on TikTok. It's going to be different.
Wow. So as a business, though, you should probably aim to be on those different platforms, would you say? Because you're attracting different audiences, as long as you're kind of segmenting the way you talk differently per platform?
I think you can. Businesses, if they have the time and bandwidth, can be on all the platforms, but I don't think you should start there. You should pick like one or two. Look at what you're comfortable on. Where are your customers or potential customers going to be? If you're in a college town, Instagram and TikTok are probably going to be the places where I would suggest you spend a lot of your time, because if you're in a college town and you're on you have a college campus next to you and that's where most of your customers come from, they're not on Facebook, they're not on Twitter. So I wouldn't spend a lot of time marketing my business there, because if my customers are on TikTok and Instagram, but I'm over here on Facebook and Twitter, I'm not going to be finding a lot of my customers, and I'm going to think social media doesn't work. So I think you need to look at who your customer base is, where the people are who live in your area, because it's all different based on where you live, where they hang out online, and then come up with a strategy for that platform to get in front of those people consistently so you can be the face. I call it the Costanza method. You ever heard of the show Seinfeld?
I've heard of it.
So there's this one episode where George Costanza wanted to go out with a date. And Jerry was like, she's way out of your league. You're never going to be able to go on a date with her. And George is like, you know what? I just need to get in front of her 3 times. And that first time is going to be like that annoying jingle that you hear on TV. And you're like, oh man, that's so annoying. And the second time you hear it, you're like, that's annoying, but I kind of get it stuck in my head. And the third time, it's just going to be Costanza, and it's just going to be part of your day. That's what I tell people when it comes to marketing. Don't be annoying, but you want to have a plan where you're constantly showing up on the internet where these people are hanging out. So that way, when they think of pizza, they think of you. Not because you keep selling them pizza every single day, but because you're constantly there and interacting and posting content that's fun and engaging and entertaining. And they say, you know what? I want a pizza tonight. I always see this place on Instagram. They look like they have a great pizza. They're always showing up. I've commented on a couple of their posts. They've commented back. I'm going to go there. And that's what we call the Costanza method. Just kind of being around for when people have a decision to make, you're the person.
Okay. So what about for professionals who have been doing this for a while? Do you have a different set of advice for them?
No, the Costanza method is the method for businesses, whether you're just starting or you're a business owner who has a brick and mortar right now and you're not marketing. Same strategy.
Okay. Got it. Now I'm going to ask you a selfish question.
Okay.
Because you've been in the game for a minute. How do I continue to grow my podcast audience? Because as you were saying earlier, it's really not about the followers on Instagram. It's about, finding more people to engage with me and interact. But it's like, how do I connect that with a podcast? Do you even market your podcast on Instagram?
I do occasionally. I used to a lot more. I used to reach out to a lot of people proactively on Facebook Messenger and on Instagram and send people DMs. Hey, you have a great looking pizza there. And they're like, well, thank you. I'm like, hey, we have a podcast. If you ever are looking to grow your business, or check it out, it's free. You don't have to, I'm not selling anything. You should check it out. And they'd be like, oh, cool. Thanks. I'll check it out. So I used to do that a lot when I first started, was very proactive in getting the message out there and trying to start one-on-one conversations with pizzeria owners, because that's who my audience was or is. But now it's grown to the point where, I could still do that, because there is a lot of people who still don't know I have a podcast, but I don't feel the need to do it as much as I did when I was first starting out. So if I was you, I would be proactive in sending out messages to people and kind of starting conversations like that. And then as you do more podcasts, I think I'm on episode 400 and something. And then that's just the podcast feed. We used to do live shows, and I would do one live show for the first 200 episodes. Every podcast that went out, we would also do an alternative live show that wasn't even on the feed. So I've probably done 600 or 700 interviews at this point with individuals or podcast episodes. So building over time. And the more people you talk to and the more people that you have on your podcast, the more they're going to become listeners or share that they've been on your podcast, and that'll introduce you to a newer audience. So be proactive, go out there and message people, let them know you have a podcast, and then just be consistent. I think the number one thing for me that made me different in this industry, like the podcast, pizza, restaurant space, was that I was consistent. I showed up every single week. You could count on a podcast coming out from me, sometimes 2 a week, but every Thursday, 5 a.m., my podcast comes out, and I've done it for 7 or 8 years consistently. I don't think I've ever missed a week. I may have missed a week once or twice over the last couple of years because I've just been busier in the last couple of years than I was in the beginning. But for the first 3 or 4 years, every week, my podcast came out. So just being consistent over time is a definite plus for anybody who's looking to grow anything.
I was just going to say that if you didn't, that this kind of advice probably applies to almost anything out there.
Yeah.
Whether you're doing a pizza podcast or a pizza blog or anything business related, it's just showing up and being there long enough to catch the wins.
It's easy to do anything for 30 days or 60 days or 90 days consistently. It's easy to go to the gym for a month. It's easy to post one post to Instagram for 30 days. It's harder to do it for 2 years. It's harder to do it for 3 years. But those people who you see who have the biggest podcasts or a good business or have grown their Instagram following, if you look back at what they've done, very rarely will you see that they've done it over a short period of time. If you see someone, you're like, oh, that business is a really good following and engaged following on Instagram, and you look, they've probably done 2,000, 2,500 posts. That's a long time of putting in the work in order to get to where they are. So just like anything, podcasting included, show up every single week and do it consistently for a long enough period of time. And you'll find an audience because you'll get better at podcasting for sure. You'll get better at listening to someone while they're talking instead of listening or while they're talking, thinking about the question you're going to ask next. It's hard to multitask in the beginning. You get better at that. And then you get better at what people want to hear. You can have data, right? You can go back and look at your podcast episodes from the past and say, wow, these 10 podcasts out of 50 really performed well. They had a real high retention rate. They had a good listenership. What made those 10 different than the other 40? And you'll see a similarity there of what made them different or better. And you can produce more of those. When you're in the beginning, you really don't know. You're kind of just throwing stuff at the wall and trying to see and figure out what works.
100% agree with you. I love that. Hey, Pizza Pal. I just want to say thank you for listening to the show so far, and thank you for making it all the way here. Before we get on to the end of the show, I want to remind you all to please leave a rating on the podcast. You could do it right now. Just go ahead and click 5 stars if you're listening on Spotify or Apple. It will greatly help the show. I appreciate you so much. And if you're looking to buy an uni or a second uni, the affiliate link helps the show so much. So please use that anytime you're considering a new oven. All right, enjoy the rest of the show. One of my questions that I always ask on the show, and since we have a hard stop, I want to make sure I ask you and have some time to go a little deep if possible. But what is one mistake in pizza business or life that people can avoid? And I want to attack this on that you've experienced yourself.
For sure. In the pizza business, it's not hard to find good help. It's hard to, as an owner or manager, take less to give somebody else more. And I learned that the hard way. I had a lot of good employees that I wish I didn't keep a hard line with and say, you know what, I can't afford to pay you anymore. I wish I figured out a way to either make more money or take less myself to keep them on as an employee because they were good. And the alternative is training somebody else to do a job that they were already good at. And it cost me the same amount anyway. So if you're in business, I would say if you find good people, do whatever you can to keep them on staff. If you have to take less money, take a little bit less money. I know you're the owner and you've put in a lot of sweat equity and hard equity to build the business up, but you can't do it without people. And that's the hardest thing to find right now. So when you find somebody good, do whatever it takes to keep them on. If you got to give them a bonus or a raise, give them a raise. You can always raise sales. It's very easy to raise sales if you have an existing business. That's one thing I would do if I was a business owner is find good people, keep them. Personally, I would say I struggle with separating work from not work. When I was in the restaurant, it's very easy to turn it off because I'm not in the restaurant, right? Like I can't make pizza. Well, I can make pizza at home, but like I'm not making pizza at home for customers. So when I get home, I'm like, all right, I'm done with work. I can turn it off and kind of relax. When I'm working what I do now, the great thing about the internet is you can work from anywhere. The bad thing about the internet is you work from everywhere because you're always connected.
Holy shit, man. Yeah, I'm going through that right now. I'm trying to set up rules. I'm trying not to check my email or Instagram the minute I wake up. I broke that rule this morning, and I feel like that's part of the reason why I'm stressed out. I've been learning to just like set breaks for myself because it's really not healthy or productive. I think at the end of the day, it's like you have only so much bandwidth throughout the day. And if you allow yourself to get distracted so many times and do like short sprints of work rather than just doing a set amount of like focused hours of deep work, you're not going to get farther along by doing those little sprints. And so really setting some time apart to just get the work done will be better for your business and for your family life outside.
I still haven't figured that out yet. I still have a hard time separating work time from family time. The only thing that seems to work for me is scheduling family time out. I know that sounds weird, but if I go, my daughter plays softball and I coach her team. So 3 or 4 nights a week, we're on the field, and from 5, from maybe 4:30 to 8 or 9 o'clock, you won't hear from me at all. I won't post. I won't be posting. I won't be commenting. I won't be returning emails. I'm just kind of on the field with her, hanging out, coaching the team, enjoying that time. So what I find works for me is scheduling time that I know I'm going to be doing something. And then being okay with the fact that if it's like yesterday, I didn't have any family time scheduled. So I was kind of like working all day, and it's Saturday. And I was thinking usually before I'd feel guilty about like, I should be doing something with the family, but just being okay with the fact that, there's nothing going on with the family. It's okay to work. Like if you actually like working and your family's okay with it, it's okay to do that. If it's something that you enjoy, and not beating yourself up for the fact that you worked on a Saturday when you said you weren't going to work Saturdays.
I love that piece of advice. What final question? What do you want to leave the audience with today?
I would say, I've talked about this a lot on the podcast, that you got to do things that you actually enjoy doing. Not too many people in the world get to make a living doing what they like to do. If you look at people who go to college, or a vast majority of people who go to college to do something that they don't even know that they like to do. And once they get out of college, they become stuck in this structure of starting a family, paying back college debt, buying a house, and being subject to the fact that they have all of these bills that they have to pay. They have to make a certain amount of money in order to sustain that. So they're stuck doing a thing. If you can get yourself unstuck and do something that you enjoy doing, don't look at it about how much money you make. Are you happy? Do you wake up in the morning and you're like, wow, I love going to work. This is fantastic. But you don't make a ton of money, but you can sustain your lifestyle and you're not, living on the streets. You can support your family, but you enjoy what you're doing. You've made it and you're a success. So to me, look at success like you can wake up every day and be happy and not be stressed or miserable about doing something that you don't enjoy doing. So for me, it's all about finding that thing and going all in on it.
I 100% believe in that too. Bruce, thank you so much for being on the show, man.
Thank you.
Really appreciate
it was my pleasure. This is great. I really enjoyed catching up with you for the second time this week. This is fantastic.
I love it. Smartpizzamarketing.com is where we can find you, and on the Instagram as well, Smart Pizza Marketing.
Yeah, just go to smartpizzamarketing.com. You can find all the links there.
Perfect. Thanks, Bruce. Have a good rest of your day. Enjoy your family time.
Thanks, buddy.
Bruce, thank you so much for jumping on the show and inspiring us with your words of wisdom. I appreciate all you've done to move pizza forward, and I can't wait to see your pizza journey continue. To you, the listener, please join me in thanking Bruce for being on the show. You can find him on Instagram at Smart Pizza Marketing. Slide into his DMs and let him know what's good, dope. One quick announcement for home pizza makers. Please remember to sign up for Pizzaioli Pop-Up. Make some pizza and fight food insecurity alongside with me. Link to that will be in the show notes. And one quick announcement for all pizza makers out there. I love you all. I appreciate you. Till next time. Peace.